Hey folks, welcome to Phantoms Monsters Radio. Thanks for joining me. I want to welcome all new listeners and members to the channel, as well as first-timers in the chat. Now, I'm going to start off with an account that was actually just forwarded to me this week. So the witness states, back in early December of 2011, my son and I had an appointment with the real estate lawyer in Gordon, Pennsylvania. Now, we got off from doing a side job in St. Clair and took the back road from Heckscherville to get on High Ridge Park Road. Now, High Ridge Road becomes Gordon Mountain Road once you go past the I-81 interchange, which is exit 119. It was getting dark, early dusk hour, and I had the headlights on. Now, we were about a half mile past the interchange when a huge wolf-like creature crossed the two-lane highway from right to left. And when I say huge, it was almost a full length of the single travel lane, which was about 7 or 8 feet. This creature was about 30 yards in front of us. I said to my son, "Wow, that's the biggest wolf I've ever seen." My son had a shocked look on his face. Unfortunately, to this day, he refuses to acknowledge it. Its description was dark gray in color with a wolf-like head, a huge muscular upper torso with narrow waist. The limbs were unusually long. All 4 limbs were large and muscular. Its appearance looked like the pictures below, which I had put on the blog, but basically it was very similar to other sightings we've had all around Pennsylvania of uprights. It took 3 strides to cross the highway. The way it loped was odd. It was stiff-legged movement. Now, the area around exit 119 had a few strange occurrences, such as vehicles shutting down, the sighting of a female apparition, and glowing blue eyes near the creature I saw, and other things as well. Now, look, this part of Pennsylvania is starting to become a hot spot for cryptid canine sightings. This was in Schuylkill County. It's a bit more north centrally located as opposed to the Lycan Loop. And this whole area includes Schuylkill County, Columbia County, and Northumberland County. Anyway, let's get started, and we can talk about these strange accounts together.
Of phantoms and monsters. They exist among us, and sometimes they win. Even the devil was an angel once. The world has its own rules, and these rules are not human. Some of us seek answers to the origin and existence of cryptids and the unexplained. Join us as we venture beyond the known and accepted boundaries. Welcome to our nightmare. I think you're going to like it.
So before I go any further, I want to mention that this channel is made possible by you clicking on the subscribe and like buttons and by you sharing the programming. Super chat and super thanks donations are appreciated. You can click the dollar icon located below the chat box. The Buy Me a Coffee link is also shown below. Thanks for your consideration. Your comments are always welcome. Tell me which accounts you find interesting in the presentation or suggestions for upcoming shows. I want to thank our chat moderators, Bernadette, Marla, Thomas, and Mike, and for their commitment to me and the channel. Now, if you're in the chat and you have a question, please use all caps, and I'll try to get to each and one of them after the presentation. So, cryptid canine sightings and encounters have been reported by Pennsylvania residents for literally centuries. Dwayyo, Werewolves, Lycans, etc. There are various monikers used by witnesses throughout the Keystone State. The physical descriptions and the characteristics also vary. Now, for several years, I have collected many of these intriguing incidents, as told to me and my colleagues by the witnesses. I look forward to your opinions, discussions, and questions about these intriguing cryptids. So, start off, a Washington County, Pennsylvania resident is shocked to see a large upright cryptid canine standing in his backyard. After it leaves, the witness is curious. And that's when the encounter gets a bit scary. He states, located in southwest Pennsylvania, my story unfolds in Washington County. I live near Washington, Pennsylvania. There have been a variety of mysterious creatures and other strange animal encounters reported in this area for a long time. New home construction seems to be causing these creatures to seek refuge in the surrounding woods. One creature seen in the area is a large wolf-like animal. While little is known about the elusive creature, reports suggest that it possesses traits like both wolves and other large animals such as bears and mountain lions. But some people also claim that it has a human-like quality and feature, which is what I feel is the most disturbing part of its existence. I've lived my whole life in this area. When I had my encounter, everything changed. I work as a freelance writer and researcher. It was the early morning of January 1st, 2012. I had just gotten out of bed after staying up longer than I had wanted at a New Year's Eve party. I was mad at myself for sleeping in and getting ready for my day when I heard this loud noise coming from outside. When I looked out the window, I was shocked to see a large wolf-like creature standing in the middle of my backyard. Now, the creature didn't match anything I'd seen before. However, it looked like the creature I had heard stories about all my life. It was easily twice the size of a normal wolf, but had human-like features such as its eyes and feet. The mouth was slightly gaped, showing its sharp teeth. The menacing beast was just standing there staring back at me as I watched it through the window. I didn't know how it knew I was there, and I couldn't figure out what to do about it being in my yard. I stared back at it, trying to figure out what this creature was. The truth is that I was a bit excited to see it. I mean, this was the culmination of all my childhood fantasies and dreams about strange creatures. It was almost a surreal moment for me, but after standing there for quite some time, the creature finally turned and ran off into the woods. Now, without a second thought, I grabbed my coat and rushed outside to try and follow it. But by the time I got there, it had disappeared into the woods. I stood at the same spot it had stood in, but I could not see anything out of the ordinary. I looked around, but there were no footprints. So it seemed necessary to walk over to where it entered the woods. Now, as I approached the edge of the woods, I was shocked by the sudden loud howling. I was now scared, and I felt like I had been pushed too far. I started to slowly work my way towards my home, hoping that the creature would just leave me alone. But as soon as I left the woods, it let out a loud growl and then lunged out of the thick cover. I turned 180 degrees from the creature and ran for my life. I reached my door and closed the back door behind me. But the creature was right there, and as it smashed into the door, shattering the glass and sending splinters of wood flying. But it didn't get through the door. It stood steady and stayed in place. Now was in the kitchen and grabbed a knife in case it found its way into the house. But by the time I turned to look, the creature was gone. It was as if it just vanished into thin air. I was standing and wondering what to do next. I called the police and reported the encounter. Over the next few hours, there was a search for the creature, but it was never found. At least that's what the authorities said to me. They told me there was nothing to worry about, but the next day a crew of some sort showed up with cameras and what looked like detectors. However, I have no idea who they were or what they were doing. For me, the creature will always remain a mystery, a sign of something more that's out there in the world. Now, I had talked about this account before, and there was a bit of an update. There was apparently 2 other sightings in the area, very brief sightings, not much description. But this came from the witness, the original witness who talked to me then. So Washington County and Greene County, which are located in the southwest corner of the state, have always had a lot of cryptid activity. Bigfoot, cryptid canines, other things as well. So it doesn't surprise me that something else was seen, or maybe it was the same creature. We don't know. Now, this next account is fairly recent. It was reported to me very recently. I'm from northwestern Pennsylvania, Clarion County. This happened years ago. In the first story, I was with my grandmother, who was 4'11" and full-blooded Sioux. She was always cranky, and she'd smack the smile off a grizzly. Well, one night we were sitting at the table eating dinner. Now, mind you, she liked her whiskey. So as we were sitting at the table, we start hearing weird grunting sounds coming from the outside, like a mixture of a dog and a pig. Well, my grandma didn't react to it, so I didn't mind it either. As we continue eating, the noises started getting closer to the back door, which was only like 2 feet away from me. My grandma stood up, grabbed the broom, and muttered something. My grandma never spoke in her native language around us kids. She always spoke English. She threw the door open, and I saw a glimpse of it. There are no wolves in Pennsylvania. This thing looked huge, standing on 2 legs, and had a German shepherd's face while growling at my grandma. As she started swinging her broom at this wolf creature, it screamed this god-awful scream that you feel in your chest. My grandma yelled more in her language. This thing takes off, and you can see the hair and muscle as it runs off. That was the last time I saw it. My grandma closed the door, looked at me, and smiled. We're safe now, she says. I was in shock with tears running down my face. I was hyperventilating. I could still hear the screams of the creature a few years later. Now, my second story, it was sometime later when I was in my late 20s. I traveled the states and camped and hiked places all over northern Idaho, Montana, and the Cascade Mountains. So one day I went on a trip about an hour south of Leeper, Pennsylvania. I was out with my Yukon Beach. These 110-pound dogs weren't afraid of anything. They chased the grizzlies off and chased a few cougars. They had no fear. That was until one day pheasant hunting. I bagged 5 pheasants and a couple grouses. Now, as the dogs worked and I bagged my limit for the day, they did something I'd never seen before. They cowered behind me, whimpering now. I was in shock. These dogs would do anything to protect me. We're deep in the Pennsylvania woods like no one around us for miles. The woods are dense and dark. I didn't see much, but I could see the ears, and they were canine-like. This thing was hiding behind a thicket of red brush, and my heart stopped. I had a 12 gauge with me, and I could slide a 3.5-inch mags in, but I only had 3 rounds due to the stopper. But we made it out of the woods. Now, as soon as we made it to the truck, I'd never seen the dogs that scared. They were shivering and hiding under my seat. They finally calmed down after we got home. Now, the next witness states, "Hi, Lon. A friend referred me to your Pennsylvania Dogman map. Maybe what we saw would qualify as one of these creatures. I was out deer hunting with my younger brother and his best friend a few years back. I want to say 2017. We were in Columbia County, a few miles east of Elk Grove. We had been walking along a trail for a good 2 miles at least. On one side of this trail is a decent drop and then a creek, and on the other side is a decent uphill section and huge forest. It was around 6 a.m. by this point, and we were just sort of quietly talking to each other when a horrific noise split the air. We all froze and looked at each other with expressions on our faces doing all the work. We knew it came up from in the forest, and where we were at, there aren't that many big predators or anything out there that we should really be scared of. So we shouldered our rifles and headed up to find out exactly what made that sound. I wish we hadn't. We got to a clearing and the trees were thinning out, and my brother flicked on his spotlight. Big and bright with excellent range. Way up ahead of us was the strangest looking figure I've ever seen. Like the general shape of a wolf, but a bit off. It stopped on the edge of another tree line just further up the hill, looking right at us, pacing side to side. My brother's friend and I had our rifles trained on it, trying to get a good look. We couldn't count out the fact it was another hunter's dog that was lost, so we, against my gut feeling, went up after it. As we got up, after it became increasingly obvious this thing was watching us very intently. The closer we got, the more we realized this was not a hunter's dog. It was big, really big, and just the way it moved, its entire demeanor was just so unsettling. We kept 2 rifles on it and went in the opposite direction, slowly making our way back, and haven't been back there since. I don't really talk about it either, as we still don't know what we saw. The people usually jump to the BS conclusion because, like I said before, where we live, there really aren't anything that big as far as predators. Now, after I looked at the map and I talked to the witness, it was along Fishing Creek, and which was confirmed by the witness. It was a quadruped. The witness said that it looked like a timber wolf, but was very dark, and the snout was not of those that he had seen in photos. It also had a sloping back like that of a hyena, and we got a lot of those reports of these hyena-looking cryptid canines, and it was quite muscular. The description is very similar to other sightings of quadruped cryptid canines I've received throughout Pennsylvania. Now, this location, for those who know the area, is just west of Ricketts Glen State Park. Now, here's a report that was actually submitted to Eric Altman of the Pennsylvania Cryptozoology Society, possibly an upright canine sighting. There is a history of upright canine sightings in Mercer County, Pennsylvania. On December 17, 2014, at approximately 3:15 a.m., shortly after leaving work, 2 men driving in different vehicles headed east on Route 62 towards the city of Mercer, Pennsylvania. They both saw an unknown figure walking down the roadway. Witness A, who has not come forward yet, saw the figure on the right side of the roadway walking east with the flow of the traffic. Witness B, who I was able to interview, saw the figure on the opposite side of the roadway walking east with the flow of traffic. Now, Witness A was approximately a half mile ahead of Witness B. Now, after Witness B saw what he claimed, he stopped at a local gas convenience store where he spoke to Witness A about what he had seen. Witness A confirmed he in fact saw the figure walking along the roadway just before Witness B did. Witness B later spoke with 2 other colleagues who left work at the same time. They were driving behind him approximately 150 to 200 yards back, and they stated they did not see any figure or anything walking along the side of the roadway. Now, Eric says, I was able to interview Witnesses B by telephone on December 19, 2014, and again on December 20, 2014, in person at the location of the sighting. The other witness who saw the figure first has not come forward to talk to me about it, what he has seen. So then there is an update. Witness B describes his sighting as such. While driving home from work at approximately 3:15 a.m., he was headed east on Route 62 between 50 and 55 miles an hour. The witness saw a very large figure walking with the flow of traffic on the opposite side of the roadway. He did not see arms swinging. He did not see specific features or any type of hair. The witness described the figure as being an all-uniform color. The color was that of light brown, as he stated, like the color of a deer. The figure seemed to be moving very gracefully as if it were gliding along. The witness looked at the figure for several seconds before passing by. The witness ruled out the possibility of this being a person due to several factors. He estimated the height of the creature was between 6.5 to 7 feet tall. The shoulders and upper body were massive in size, coming down to a tapered and thin waist. The witness stated that the legs were 2 to 3 times the size of his. The witness emphasized the figure was much larger than an NBA pro player or NFL football player. He stated that figure was much larger than former Pittsburgh Steelers tackle Max Starks, who is 6'8" and weighs 370 pounds. The witness stated that the figure made Max look like a child. The witness also stated that 2 other colleagues were driving behind him approximately 150 to 200 yards. When he questioned them later, they too had seen the figure, but both stated that they did not. After passing the figure alongside the roadway, he stopped at a convenience store where he spoke to his colleague who saw the figure just a few minutes before. When he asked him if he saw the figure, the other witness replied, "You mean that giant effer walking on the side of the road," which confirmed he had seen the figure as well. So I don't know what they saw, but it does sound like a cryptid canine. I figured I'd throw it in here, kind of give perspective of what people see and what they say and with their descriptions. Now, in January 2019, the witness states, "I noticed something lumbering down my driveway. The window I was looking out of faces over and above the drive, if it's that clear. For example, I can see the roof of I can see the roof of the car, but not always the bottom of the tire. Regardless, I noticed movement. I looked out and saw what I initially thought was a bear, nose to the ground, kind of snuffling its head side to side, casually walking down the drive on all fours." Now, a little geographical clarity. I live in town. The front of my neighborhood faces a major highway, but the back is all state game land. I've seen some wildlife, turkeys, a deer here and there, and every skunk in the county apparently lives on my street. I don't see many squirrels, groundhogs, or chipmunks, which is a bit odd. I'm not very far from the city of Scranton, about 7 miles from downtown. So I'm not exactly in the sticks. I watch this, quote, bear mosey down towards its street, its head lowered. I moved from the living room window to my bedroom window that had a full view of the street. Sure enough, here it comes. But something was wrong. I watched this beast stand on 2 legs and casually walk out into the road. I see pointed ears and a long snout. It's got its head raised, smelling the air. This was no bear. I saw it in perfect silhouette under the yellow streetlight. It was either dark gray or black. The yellow light threw off the true color. It stood without effort, looked like one fluid movement, and then walked across the road, casual as you please, and kind of hunkered down in some scrub brush. Then I realized it was looking right into my bedroom. It had blue eyes. I'm not sure if it was just reflected light or if they were actually glowing. It looked right at me. I lost my legs at that moment and sat down under my window. Absolutely panicked. I was home alone with 5 cats and a dog who slept through the whole thing. I didn't know what to do. A window is a big picture window, and if it wanted me, it easily could have gotten to me. I cautiously got on my knees to peek out over the sill, and I lost it. Didn't see my eyes or it anywhere. It seemed to be either moving away from the forest behind my house or decided to rest up in the scrub brush. Now, what I saw under the streetlight is as follows: darkish fur, high pointed ears, long muzzle. I never saw teeth or if it had a tail. It had hands with long claws that hung kind of limp, like a limp wrist. It was fully extended. It would hang below the knees. It walked in hot dog legs. It looked easily muscled, but had a tapered waist. It was about 7 to 7.5 feet tall, judging from where it stood in relation to the streetlight. It was not aggressive, even when I felt it look right at me. I was terrified, but I didn't get a sense that it was pissed off or it had been seen, as some people report. I didn't take a picture because I simply didn't think to. I was in a fair amount of shock, but sometimes your phone is absolutely the last thing on your mind. There have been some odd sounds tapping on my window, and I can hear scratching on the siding. I don't see as many animals around the neighborhood. There used to be about 7 stray cats I fed, but they're all gone. Now, once the weather broke, it's been quiet. I installed motion lights and bought 2 trail cameras. I'm hoping they are, in a sense, like Sasquatch. They avoid game cams. I don't ever want to see this thing again. My encounter was not aggressive. I can't imagine having to deal with this thing when it's upset. I still can't sleep a full night, and every sound scares the hell out of me after dark. I live alone, and the 357 I own will probably just ruffle its fur. Now, here's an older account that I have talked about, but there has been another update with this as well. The witness states, I was deer hunting just north of Tuscarora State Forest. This is on Saturday, December 3rd, 2016. I have a tree standing on the edge. I have a tree stand on the edge of a large field owned by a friend. I have been hunting here for almost 20 years and have bagged several deer at this location. I saw something that early morning I'm not sure how to explain. It was about 7:10 a.m. and it just turned light. I noticed a few deer in the distance running towards the state forest. I looked through my scope and saw what I thought were 2 coyotes following the deer. But these coyotes didn't look quite right. They were larger, almost like wolves. About 15 minutes later, I was watching a buck about 600 yards south of me in an open field when it bolted towards the trees. Then I saw a large dog-like animal. It was slowly walking or stalking, I'm not sure, but it was headed in my direction. I was upwind from it, and it soon noticed me in the tree stand. It stopped and looked at me for a few seconds, then started walking towards me again. It was about 100 yards or so from me, and it started growling. This was not a dog or coyote. It reminded me of a wolf, but the back was arched and the head was huge. The fur was very dark and the legs were odd with sparse hair. I thought about shooting it, but something told me not to. I was shaking as well. This animal really scared me. It once again stopped moving and looked at me for a few seconds. The face was that of a wolf, but the snout was shorter than any wolf photo I've ever seen. It had steely eyes, almost like those of a human. Really weird. Something caught its attention and it ran off towards the south. I stayed on the stand for another hour and didn't see anything during that time. Now, when I did leave the stand, I was very cautious. I had no idea if I was in the area. I reached my car and left. I talked to a game commission officer later and reported the animal. He said that there had been a few reports of large dogs, but that they were most likely just coyotes. I told him that this was not a coyote, but he didn't really seem to care. I talked to a guy at church who told me about your website and said I should contact you. I don't want to be too specific about the location because it's private land, belongs to a friend. Now, I did contact the witness by email, and I phoned him in that next morning. He was somewhat shaken by the encounter. It was obvious on the phone. Now, this encounter north of Tuscarora State Forest is in Perry County. It's an area where we've had a lot of sightings. Perry County, Center County, that whole area around Rothwell State Park, Bald Eagle State Park, State Forest. He answered a few questions, seemed to be very truthful. The archback is what intrigued me. The witness mentioned hyena lake, a description that I have heard before. It never went bipedal while the witness observed it. Now, I did get an update not too long ago from the same witness where he believes he saw something very similar to it again during the last deer season. So, in the same area, he has gone back and hunts the area. And it's been a couple of years since he had seen it, but then something showed up again. And apparently he saw it up on a ridge, kind of a rise on the field where it had come over, and it sat there and was watching him. So I don't know what people are seeing, but quite frankly, we've had reports in that area before, something very similar, quadruped with the archback, looks like a hyena body-wise. All over the state, quite frankly, but especially in central Pennsylvania. Now, this next account, the witness states, my information is secondhand because it came from my father, who is now deceased. I was in my teens when I first heard it, which was around 18 years ago. In 1984, our family lived in a house that was located on River Road along Racetown branch of the Juniata River near Huntington, Pennsylvania. One early evening during the summer of 1984, he said that he was driving on River Road towards Route 22. The river was on his right side, and it was still light outside. He noticed movement along the near bank, thinking that there may have been a fisherman. He slowed the car to get a better look when this creature stood up on two legs. It was not a fisherman, but what he called a walking wolf. The creature looked at my father for a second, then quickly walked into the river. He believes it either walked or swam to the far bank, but he saw it pull itself out of the water and run into the woods on two legs. He described it as at least 6 foot high with sparse brown and gray hair on the body, and legs and arms that looked like those of a well-developed human man. It had hands with claws and large, long feet. The head was that of a wolf and a heavy mane of hair. It bared its teeth which resembled those of a dog or wolf. He said that it didn't look like the movie Wolfman, that it looked more like an actual wolf. Now, he later found a photo from an old film that he said it looked like the creature's head and face without the clothes, which actually the photo was that of the Wolfman, the old Lon Chaney Jr. Wolfman. I still have it, so I scanned it here for you to see. A few other family members have heard this story. My uncle, my father's brother, believes that it was true. He said that there had been several weird animals seen along the lake and downriver since the dam was constructed in 1973. I've only heard about Racetown Ray, the lake monster, which I believe is exaggeration, but then again, who am I to question anybody's story? My father was a truthful person and never told lies and make-believes. I know that you have gotten other walking wolf reports, and I read a few on your website. I looked at the map also. It seems that the creatures are real and that my father really did see them. If you could contact me, I'd like to talk about this. Thank you. So I contacted the witness by telephone after a few emails. He seemed honest and feels his father did witness something unusual. I had some other details to the account after I discussed it with him. Now, I had written about Racetown Ray previously, which is almost like a dinosaur-like creature that people continuously see at the lake. Even though it's a man-made lake, and why would something like that be there? But then again, who knows? The lake has produced some huge lunkers over the years, striped bass, muskellunge, large lake trout, which occasionally slip through the dam gates into the river. I have fished at the Juniata River right by the dam many times myself. Now, as far as the upright canine sightings, I don't believe that there have been any recorded accounts near the lake, and this is still the only one. Though there have been a few Bigfoot encounters reported. In fact, there have been 2 witnesses that I know of have actually seen Bigfoot noodling in the lake, actually trying to capture catfish. Now, this sighting is in the general area of Pennsylvania, where I believe most of the upright activity has been taking place, even though it occurred 30 plus years ago. And it is. I mean, we get a lot of sightings in this area as well, from that lake down into some of the other counties around there. In fact, Thomas and Bernadette actually did an investigation in an area for me as well. Now, this next account, I believe, may have been related to a cryptid canine, though I'm not really sure. Now, park rangers at Little Buffalo State Park in central Pennsylvania recall a sighting of an upright cryptid that they had in the park one summer night. So this is what they stated to me. I had been working as a park ranger at Little Buffalo State Park in central Pennsylvania for about 6 months when I had my encounter. It was August of 2006. My partner and I were driving along the park at night to do a final check of the area for the evening. We were about halfway through our section of the park when we got a call from dispatch saying that there was a camper who wanted us to come out and look at his RV because he thought he had been vandalized or broken into. Now, I told dispatch that we would be there shortly. We turned the vehicle around. We arrived at this campsite within 5 minutes or so. So we found a gentleman who was in his mid-60s standing outside his RV looking very serious. He walked up to our truck and I asked him if we could please look at his camper. Now, his behavior was very unusual, so he cautiously agreed and walked over to the camper with us following closely behind him. He was very nervous, and he kept looking around the entire time, almost like he was expecting something to jump out. We took a quick look inside the camper and found nothing that appeared to be out of place or missing. Now, I asked him if anything had been taken from the inside. He said no, but there were some things that he thought were moved around during the short time he was gone. I looked around for another minute or so before telling him that we didn't see anything wrong. So we thanked him for calling us, and then we started walking back towards the truck. That's when my partner, who is an avid hunter, said to me, do you smell that? I stopped walking for a second because I honestly didn't notice any kind of odor other than the normal smell of state park campground, mildew, pine needles, etc. My partner had spent many hours in the woods, so he knows his smells. He told me that it smelled like something was trying to cover up its own scent. And now that he's said that, that's when I noticed it as well. It was a very light odor, but there. We looked around for another minute or so before my partner said, I think we need to get out of here. We got into our truck and drove off towards the main area of the park, which is about 1 mile away from where we were at the campsite. We navigated our way up the path, and as soon as we got onto the main road that travels through the park, we saw it. It looked like a 7 to 8 foot tall creature walking along the road. I was driving, so I didn't get a good look at it, but my partner saw it walk out onto the road in front of us. It then quickly crossed to the other side where there was more vegetation and trees. He said that he could only see the backside as it walked across the road, but that it had very wide shoulders, almost too wide for its body. He also said that he thought he could see long black hair covering its arms and shoulders, but he wasn't sure because it was dark. Now, we drove around looking for this thing for about an hour. We had no luck finding anything else unusual, so we eventually gave up and returned to the office. The next day, I couldn't stop thinking about it, so I went back to the site by myself in hopes of finding any evidence of what we saw or smelled there. But we found nothing out of place or unusual in any way. I decided to just move on and not focus on it since there was no concrete evidence that could be found. I've heard of other encounters in this area as well, which makes me believe that something is going on out there for sure. Also, there have been sights reported from this area all the way over to Harrisburg. Anyway, that's my story. I'm not here to convince anybody what I saw was real, but I know what I saw and smelled was real. Also, there have been several reports of dead deer in the area, deer that were torn apart but not eaten. Now, that's very unusual to say the least, so I'm wondering if it's all connected somehow. The most common theory among hunters here is that something is killing deer just for sport and covering up its tracks or scent with other odor to mask its own. I can't quite figure out how that would work, but that's just what some people are saying. In the end, I'm not exactly sure what is really going on. So that's the last account, folks. I want to thank Peace for a $50 super sticker, much appreciated. Win Knives for the $20 donation. Lee C for the $10 donation. Thank you very much. Much appreciated. We got any questions? I will say one thing. We have had sightings all over the state, quite frankly. Right now, I had documented 39 sightings, modern sightings, since probably since 2000, so 24 years. So there are sightings. I have talked to park rangers, not park rangers, but commission people, commission rangers, commission officers who won't really come out and say that they're absolutely sure that these creatures are around, but they see a lot of weird things. Christine Lehner, sorry, asked, maybe do a show on Men in Black sightings or similar encounters. I can do that. Thank you for the suggestion. Savage Grammy. Hi, Lon. All terrifying encounters, but a human never actually attacked Dogman. Seems to only attack animals for sport. Your thoughts? The one overwhelming characteristic of these creatures is that they do stand their ground. They do kind of give off some type of psychic warning of some type to people. And there have been hunters who we had talked to, even when Butch was around, of coming up to these things while carrying a gun, and they just back off. They lower the gun and back away. Here in Pennsylvania, we really don't have any. We don't have any encounters, encounter attacks. There have been some bluff charges. We had a commissioner officer that was bluff charged. He and his wife and two other couples were bluff charged up at Rothrock State Park. So there have been a few of those. We also had a woman who was chased by one up in Micho, just above Caledonia State Park. So they do seem somewhat aggressive, but they don't necessarily attack anyone. But quite frankly, I wouldn't want to be the first one to get it upset and have it do that. Dust Bunny, do any of the areas reporting these creatures also have incidents of missing persons? That's hard to tell, because missing person reports in the state of Pennsylvania, for whatever reason, don't necessarily get out in the news that much. I believe that there have been missing people, especially along the Appalachian Trail and a few other public areas. But I have talked to people who have had encounters, but as far as missing people go and maybe being something connected with these beings, I don't know. we just don't get a lot of missing person reports in this state. And I think Thomas can attest to that. I think others can as well. We just don't get a lot of them. Or let's put it this way, missing person reports that seem out of the ordinary, that don't involve a murder or possibly an attack by another person. So, okay, Shorter Cook, I got your email. I'll look it over. Dagnammit. Do anyone have a chance to take a picture of these cryptids? We've never gotten a photograph or one that even is discernible. People have attempted to take photographs of it. I did have a photograph taken in the southern area of Michaud State Forest, which is south of Route 30. But it was very little to see. It may have been some ears, but I didn't see much else. Apparently, the witness got a better look at it. And in fact, it was the area near where the famous Bigfoot tracking at the Waynesboro Reservoir took place at, if anybody remembers that. It wasn't too far from that reservoir where all those Bigfoot footprints were found in the mud alongside the reservoir. That was, how many years ago that was? It was a while. Christine Lehner. Are these creatures shapeshifters or species? Or, yeah, they could be shapeshifters. There's a lot of, just like with Bigfoot, there's a lot of possible supernatural things or aspects of these creatures as well. And you heard at least one account where this seems to vanish. We get the same thing with Bigfoot. They do have the ability to move, even with the Chicago Mothman. Get the same thing. I think a lot of cryptids have supernatural abilities and can move into portals or disappear, vanish, or whatever. It's not proven, but it's hard to explain where these creatures go or how they disappear so quickly or even manifest. One of the first or second reports that Butch and I got back in 2013 was up in Clearfield County, where a guy was walking his dogs, and this upright canine literally manifested right in front of them and just kept walking like it didn't even notice him. Now, could that have been some type of portal or time slip or something? I guess it's possible. Never have been able to figure that one out. Paula S. Do you think canines and Sasquatch are aware of each other and have interacted? Oh, absolutely. Yeah, there have been some instances, according to witnesses, where they do believe they have run into each other for territory and having territory disputes. In particular, in the last few years of J.C. Johnson's life, he was living up in northern Minnesota near the Canadian border, and there was an area up there he was investigating. The guy's name is Ron, who owned the property, and they were Bigfoot and they were upright canines living in the same area. And there were disputes, mini wars between these creatures. Butch and I had talked about for years that we thought that, especially here in Pennsylvania, along the Blue Ridge, down into past Maryland and into West Virginia, there may have been a migration route, and that the upright canines or dogmen seem to travel higher up along ridges as opposed to Bigfoot to seem to kind of migrate in the river valleys or in the stream valleys, according to what people have seen. I mean, very rarely we had a sighting of a Bigfoot at an elevation. but especially down West Virginia. But we got a lot of them down there where they were up higher, a lot of the cryptid canines. But I think they do. I think they do encounter each other. I think they try to avoid each other, but I think they do encounter each other. Aaron G., do you think the dog man is nomadic, or do you think they stay in an area? We're not really sure. I think, just like any animal, the situation is to where they're looking for food or game or whatever, even water, I think they're going to move. I think in this area in south central Pennsylvania into southwest Pennsylvania, I think there is that they may very well migrate. I don't know the time period of the year, or they do it biannually, or when they do it. But I think they're, according to what witnesses have seen at certain times, I think they do that. I think Bigfoot do as well, but I don't think it's every year, and I think it's only out of necessity. Christine Lehner, have people ever been hurt by these creatures or just scared? Just scared. I have no reports of anybody being attacked and hurt. Mortal Clown, thank you so much for your donation. It's much appreciated. Jose Sanchez, are there any reports of dog men with another color coat other than black or gray, maybe brown or sienna? They come in all colors. We've had them of all colors. In Pennsylvania, it's mostly dark colors, but I've had other reports nationwide where they come in all sorts, even very sparse hair, body types, even skin color. Many times they have darker skin, there's lighter skin. So there just doesn't seem to be one specific type. Ryan, I want to thank you as a new member. Much appreciated. Christine Lehner, do you think that there are animals are alien? I think there's a possibility that they're otherworldly, especially Bigfoot. But we have no real proof of that other than anecdotal evidence from witnesses. I think that could kind of encompass any cryptid. But I don't know. I can't give you I can't give you an absolute answer to that. Ryan asked, what do you think of Scott Carpenter's Dogman footage? Honestly, in respect to Scott, since he's passed, I don't really want to comment on it. I didn't know Scott personally. The only thing I will say is I think some of what he believed he captured on film was a bit contrived. I'm not saying it was absolutely all like that, but I think some of what he caught was a bit objective. I don't know. But I don't want to really say much more than that. Jose Sanchez, what are the hyena cryptids called? Are they similar or different to the dogman? I call them dogman because they're quadrupeds. And because of the musculature of them, they do seem to have some human qualities to it, though they look much like hyenas. Butch and I, when we had talked about them together and when we referenced them, the quadrupeds we considered the dogman and the uprights we considered as uprights or bipedal canines. Now, look, this could be interchangeable because we have frankly seen descriptions of these creatures that are very similar, either being biped or quadruped, so it's interchangeable. Moondogs, thank you for your donation, much appreciated. Dagnammit, do Lycans maintain consciousness and intelligence of its human form throughout that change? Geez, I don't know. I really can't answer that. I have no proof of it. I do believe they are intelligent. I'm pretty sure they're conscious of us. Since I believe there's a possibility they may very well be otherworldly or have supernatural aspects to them, that they do have a degree of consciousness that may be different than ours. But I think, all in all, I think many of them may very well be similar to us as far as of consciousness and intelligence. Savage Grammy, Lon, where did you say that Dogman materialized right in front of the park visitor? That was at I don't remember the exact game land it was, but it was in Clearfield County. It was just south of Penfield. Okay, folks. Well, I want to thank each and all of you for watching and chatting. And if you donated, it's very much appreciated. Always is. And your support's what makes all this possible. Please like, subscribe, and share. If you have a sighting encounter or, please contact me at Lon Strickler, phantomsmonsters.com. So until we meet again, I want to thank you. And again, get a hold of me. And if you do have some suggestions for future shows, please contact me and we'll see what we can do. So until next week. Oh, and I do want to again remind you, July 31st on Netflix, Unsolved Mysteries. Our work will be into a certain investigation will be detailed in one of the episodes. There's 5 episodes that are going to be released on the July 31st. Ours is the last one of the 5, but they will be released on that day. So I encourage you to watch it, and maybe we'll do a show about that and we'll talk about it, and I can try to get Tobias to come on with me and we can discuss it and see what we can do as far as that's concerned. So until next week, I will see you then. And thanks again for joining me tonight. Take care.